कईयों को मैंने पूरा एड्रेस भेजा है, आपका पूरा टेक्स्ट भेजा। इस पिता का आया, काफी अच्छा लिखा उसने। ड्रेस ठीक है, आपका ड्रेस दिक्कत नहीं है। विश्वविद्यालय ने कुछ पी2 को समझाया है ना, इस पिता को से बनाएंगे तो नेक्स्ट ब्लॉक आएगी, इस इशू लोग डिस्कस कर लेंगे, तो बताएगी वो। 2005 बैच की है वो आई है, तो उसका अच्छा खासा एक्सपीरियंस भी है। यशु रुस्तगी है, 2012 बैच की है, यूपी में है। उसने भी कहा है कि आप तो शुरू करते हैं फिर आज का।
यस सर।
सॉरी, कहते हैं भावना, 3-4 चीज तो हम लोग कल के इंटरव्यू से कर लेते हैं।
यस सर।
राजगोपाल ने मुझको शाम को बोला कि आप ओवर एम्फेसिस मत करो कि क्या पहले जा रहा है क्या बाद में जा रहा है, इसमें ज्यादा कोशिश करो कि जो जाए वो चला जाए। इन केस मान लो आप में सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट पहले नहीं आ रहा तो कोई बात नहीं है, उसको आप किसी भी तरह से भेज देना। आपका पेस कंट्रोल था, पेस ठीक था, आपको दिक्कत नहीं, पेस ठीक है, उसमें सब फाइन था। तीसरा, आप स्माइल के बारे में सबने बहुत अच्छा बोला कि आप स्माइल जो है आप उसको कैरी करना, ये कोशिश करना कि आपकी जो स्माइल है वो नेचुरल रही। और कोई इशू अभी लोड कर दिया है हमने, कहते हैं उसका रिकॉर्डिंग, उसको दोबारा आप देखो, रिकॉर्डिंग आगे पीछे करके स्टॉप करके।
यस सर।
ये लोगों भी ये लोग उस रिकॉर्डिंग को देखिए, अपनी ओपिनियन ये लोग भी दे। क्या कई लोग ओपिनियन देते हैं तो कई चीज होती है जो हम स्किप कर जाते हैं, दूसरा आदमी देख लेता है। कहाँ शुरू करें तो मतलब सॉरी आ जाएंगे
सर। विथ बिजनेस स्टैंडर्ड न्यूज इटसेल्फ, ग्रीन ग्रोथ एंड
बिजनेस स्टैंडर्ड में पहला इन्होंने फिर कहा है कि रेपो रेट मूव अप मे गो अप 25 बेसिस पॉइंट बिफोर पॉज। वो आपको भेजा नहीं है क्योंकि उसमें कोई खास नहीं था। तो ये समझना सिर्फ ये है कि रेपो रेट का फर्क क्या पड़ता है, मैंने उसको डिस्कस किया हुआ है। There's nothing to, वैसे कोई नया था नहीं इसमें।
यस सर।
रेपो रेट का जो अर्थव्यवस्था पे जो व्हाट्स ऑफ इम्पैक्ट इज कमिंग ऑन द इकोनॉमी ऑफ द रेपो, वी हैव डिस्कस्ड अर्लियर आल्सो, एंड देयर इज नथिंग न्यू इन दिस फ्रंट पेज आर्टिकल व्हिच वाज इन द बिजनेस स्टैंडर्ड। दूसरा क्या था आर्टिकल?
सर जोशी मठ, a well engineered calamity.
बहुत अच्छा है। गीता नारायण जब भी लिखती है, क्या है उनकी एक्सपर्टीज है इसमें, जब भी वो लिखती है उनके लिखने में एक नया अंग रहता है, हमेशा रहता है। और ये हम लोग कैसे शुरू करते हैं, ठीक बोलो तो आशा नहीं है, आशा है।
Sir, the main thing in this article is that she has analyzed the vulnerability of the Himalayan region, the entire Himalayan region, not only which is in India, but also which is in Bhutan, Nepal, and even the Chinese parts also. And what are the problems that we might face because of increasing focus on hydroelectric power generation? Although we can say that hydroelectric power is a kind of a green energy, because it is not using any polluting fossil fuels. But again, we'll have to consider the kind of impact that it would have on the ecosystem, on the environment, and that particular region. Sir, in this, she focuses on micro hydro irrigation, the use of micro hydroelectric projects, which are only run of the river projects and which can also generate electricity. So we should focus more on them. But however, even they are not completely devoid of any issues as such. Even they can create local hazards, like they can also lead to inundation of the nearby areas. So even this should be considered before proceeding, even with micro hydro irrigation projects. And other major concern is we should also go for environmental impact assessment before starting any kind of hydroelectric project, be it a micro hydroelectric project or even the major projects. So this is the gist of the article, sir.
अगर आप याद तो हम लोग कहीं पहले डिस्कस किए थे, द फिजिबिलिटी रिपोर्ट है कि अगर कोई भी ऐसा हम प्रोजेक्ट बनाते हैं या मिनी प्रोजेक्ट, then we must see the feasibility report with environmental assessment. अगर आप देखिए तो इसी बात को उन्होंने इनडायरेक्टली कहने की कोशिश की है विदाउट यूजिंग वर्ड। दूसरा उन्होंने कहा है ऐसे स्ट्रक्चर बनाए जाए और कितने संख्या में बनाए जाए। You see the first पैरा जो तीन पैरा है, फर्स्ट पैरा जो लास्ट लाइन में देखिए, तो इस बात को कहने की कोशिश की है कि जो प्लानिंग हो वो कैसे एप्रोप्रिएट हो। एप्रोप्रिएट प्लानिंग में यह जो स्ट्रक्चर है वह कैसे बनाया जाए और कितनी संख्या में बनाया जाए। अब यह तो अगर कहा जाए कि हम कोई भी हाइड्रो पावर प्लांट अगर हम पहाड़ों पर नहीं बनाए तो then we cannot go ahead with the clean energy. This question is ruled out. We should not make it. The question is here how we can make it. For the clean power, we have to make it. So, बात की high level government committee to discuss these projects in the same region. तो जहां पर भी डिजास्टर तो स्टडी होनी चाहिए कि कौन कौन से एरियाज हैं जो प्रोन है और वहां अगले जैसे लास्ट ने कहा था कि नाउ वी नीड टू स्टडी विद द ज्योग्राफी आल्सो, नॉट वेरी डिटेल्ड कि पूछ लिए वहां पे सिस्मिक रीजन क्या है, क्यों होता है। तो बेसिक जो एनसीईआरटी लेवल की ज्योग्राफी है उसका आइडिया होना चाहिए। और तो कोई खास इसमें था नहीं, मतलब ऑलमोस्ट मैं पढ़ा ही हुआ था इसमें।
Sir, there was that earthquake in Turkey.
Yes, yeah.
So the entire Himalayan belt also belongs to the mid-continental belt itself, which stretches from regions of Mediterranean Europe till the end of Himalayas. So we can say that the entire mid-continental belt is very fragile and very active now.
यही बात सुनीता नारायण ने कही है और आप देखो इसी तरह बात इन्होंने कही है। जो आपका पूरा बेल्ट है पूरा बेल्ट ही एक तरह से कहते हैं वल्नरेबल है। अगर टर्की में कुछ होता है उसका असर यहाँ तो आएगा ना आएगा, तो लिंक है ना आपस में।
Yes, sir.
जो टर्की अब देखिए एक अलग सवाल आ गया कि जो टर्की है वो क्यों हुआ।
Sir, it was a very massive earthquake of 7.8 on the Richter scale.
अर्थक्वेक क्यों, अब देखिए अर्थक्वेक क्यों आता है।
Sir, because of the movement of the tectonic plates, which can.
वो मूव क्यों होती है।
Sir, because of the inner magnetic forces of the earth.
देखो रोकना होगा। हाँ ओके ओके हाँ ओके हाँ यस 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 नहीं कर पाए। मैं क्लास कर तुमको ये यशु जस्ट गिव द टाइम तुम बताओ पर।
Sir, they move because of the conveyor belt mechanism, which is the mantle of the earth will continuously be in the liquid form and it will be in movement. So it can sometimes happen that these tectonic plates also undergo movement.
तो एक तो होता है मूवमेंट होता है क्योंकि हमने ओवर एक्सप्लॉइटेशन किया एरिया का, एक नेचुरल मूवमेंट होता है प्लेट का। तो इन दोनों का जो कई बार अगर इंटरव्यू डील करने लगे तो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि जो हमारा वो कहते हैं अर्थक्वेक आता है वो क्यों आता है। तो यू ट्राई टू डिस्टिंग्विश के सर अपने आप ही उसके अंदर मूवमेंट होते रहते हैं। वो क्या है वो एक्सेलरेट हो जाते हैं। नाउ व्हेन वी आर डूइंग दिस टाइप ऑफ एक्टिविटीज क्या होता है ये एक्सेलरेट हो जाते हैं। बताओ क्या इसमें।
Sir, nothing else, sir. We can talk about how we can have sustainable development in those regions.
आंसर क्या है कि there need to be balance. बैलेंस कैसा हो, हम ये तो नहीं कह सकते हम कोई प्रोजेक्ट नहीं लगाएंगे। बिफोर गिविंग द अप्रूवल ऑफ एनी प्रोजेक्ट, we need to have the environment sustainability report। ये है, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, यह एक एक्सेप्टेड फिनोमेना हो चुका है। चाय पिलाना कहाँ से लाओगे? वो यार वो क्लास नहीं है, अपनी अपनी कहते हैं मम्मी से बोलना, क्लास को याद करके ले लेंगे। क्या है जो एनवायरमेंटल जो एक्सेसिबिलिटी रिपोर्ट है हर प्रोजेक्ट के साथ, तो शौर्य आ गया, शौर्य
सर
जरा आप एनलाइटन करो ऑन द इशू ऑफ द अर्थक्वेक। जैसे कल अर्थक्वेक आया टर्की में भी।
यस सर।
और हम लोग जो जोशीमठ है वो सब लोग जोड़ रहे हैं, जोशीमठ की कैलेमिटी क्या है, हमारा एक्सपेक्टेशन हुआ है, जो टर्की का अर्थक्वेक है और यहाँ का है, दोनों का लिंक करो आप।
सर अगर technically speaking, if you see geologically or tectonically, then you find that there is an Anatolian fault line. That is the reason for Turkey's earthquake. All right. Or
Yes, sir.
ultimately macro level pe even these zones, jitne bhi zones hain, howsoever many zones are there, either they are actually categorized on the basis of their proximity to the fault line zones, to the seismically most active zones. That is what is happening. Okay. So whether be it Joshimath incidents or be it Turkey incidents, ultimately you will find that they are tectonically propelled. These incidences are tectonically propelled. However, intensity is a different thing and magnitude of destruction is a different thing. These two things are absolutely different. Okay. So it is all the more advisable that since zonation has already been done, seismic zonation in India, seismic zonation of the world is already in place. That is why from the, if you are, suppose you are asked from the perspective of development or urbanization, then all you can say that ये जो zone clearance है, zone clearance का जो कहा जाता है कि zonal clearance होना चाहिए, conventional wisdom has already been there. If you see, conventional wisdom has who can learn better than Japan and other island countries. So conventional wisdom itself has taken place there, and it has already devised generations of house construction, urbanization according to the contours of the land and the tectonic risks. तो क्यों वहां पर लकड़ी के जो है वो wooden, they go for wooden house material and all. Now there has been a lot of development. We cannot house everybody in wooden houses because of the paucity of wood material and already endangered forests. But as you see, a lot of development and research has taken place in terms of developing a construction material that is strong enough, flexible enough, and light enough to sustain and endure even what you say, an earthquake
resistant
9 to 10 scale. So that material is there. So what is the need of the hour is that the entire urbanization pattern of seismically most sensitive zones is revisited. If need be, the government should float what you call a pooling mechanism or something like that. If the government cannot itself undertake such construction activities, the government can go for subsidizing. That if the house construction, ultimately who bears the burden? Ultimately it comes to the government for compensation for this and that. So what can government do in situations, whether it is Joshimath or Turkey? If you ask from developmental perspective, the state should introduce a policy of incentivizing construction of houses after what sir said, after a feasibility report, even in the, not only in the case of mega projects, but also in the case of urban settlements. So urban settlement का नक्शा पास होता है ना, you must have heard, the municipality or local authority that
master plan.
Exactly, that is master plan of the entire city or that town. This is called town planning here, for example, in Gujarat. So town planning or master plan that must factor in feasibility report of urban settlements, number one. Number two, the government should encourage by way of subsidy or by way of any other, maybe that if you go for this kind of construction plan, then we will say subsidize you for electricity bills. So there can be a direct benefit or indirect benefit scheme. These are the two ways. Number three, a strong disaster management machinery. These are the three ways to deal with such situations. Now, causality ke hisab se, according to the causality, the tremors in Joshimath, the incidents in Joshimath is different from the incidents in Turkey. You already know that. वहां पर जो है जो subsidence और इस सब का जो कारण, that is the reason. And here it is I mean the purest form of fault line earthquake. So that's how you distinguish between the two. But ultimately, if you talk about from the perspective of restoration or development or disaster management, then these three common points will be there, no matter what disaster you are talking about. And I advise you strongly to go for the report of this thing. NDMA has a guideline kind of thing for different kinds of disasters. बहुत सारे talking points आपको मिल जाएंगे उसमें से. You will get a lot of talking points. NDMA की एक guideline report है. And it is very good, very easy, written in a very lucid language, and जो कि memory में retain भी हो जाएगा. बहुत easy है. So you should.
Available भी है वो. आकाश, बोलो आप इसको कुछ. What you understood? आज जो सब मैं फिर से करता हूँ, सिंपल इशू क्या है? There is a problem with Joshimath. Yesterday there was an earthquake in Turkey. The question which has been raised, what is the relationship between these two issues? या these two का क्या relationship है? क्या जो टर्की का earthquake है, जो calamity है, Joshimath क्या वो same है या अलग-अलग है? क्या कोई दोनों के बीच linkage establish हो सकता है? Just try to address this issue.
Sir, I think.
Bhavana ने भी कुछ कहा ही है, ठीक है?
Sir, both incidents are technically different because in Joshimath there is a issue of like location is different and the factors which causing this condition is different. Like in Turkey, due to the seismic activity and seismic activity, there was earthquake. But in Joshimath there are multiple reasons, not just seismic activity, but like fragile physiographical features and the location which is situated on the alluvial soil of the not alluvial but morasis, or I'm not able to exactly recall that term, but actually basically it is situated on the
interview जो चीज याद नहीं आए ना उसको skip कर जाओ, rather than to emphasize कि मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा, I'm not able to recall, उसको skip कर जाओ. अगर मान लो 4-5 क्वेश्चन में आपने लगा था I'm not able to recall, क्या अननेसेसरी वो बोर्ड के दिमाग में जाकर कहीं स्ट्राइक करेगा. उनको मतलब नहीं है आप क्या याद करेंगे, उनको मतलब नहीं. सिंपल वाली आप फ्लो में कहते जाओ.
यस सर, कल एक मिस्टेक हुई थी सर, वो पॉइंट आउट कराना मुझसे रह गया सर. मैंने आकाश से पूछा था सर कि इफ आई रिमेंबर करेक्टली कि हाँ, you have taken an optional of sociology and you are from engineering background, so if I combine the two, what is social engineering? So he ventured into answering even though that was not the correct answer sir. So जहाँ पे you are not sure, then just it's okay. So if you see social engineering is a different thing altogether. It is the way how they control you through your
social engineering वो सोसाइटी का पार्ट है ना, उसका कोई इंजीनियरिंग के नेट बोर्ड संबंध थोड़ी है. तो गवर्नमेंट हो गया ना. जब से भारत का राष्ट्रीय आंदोलन शुरू हुआ है, सोशल इंजीनियरिंग तभी शुरू हो गई है. बहुत अगर सोशल इंजीनियरिंग बोर्ड नहीं अगर आप एक्सप्लेन कर पाओगे तो इंजीनियरिंग मत करो. हमेशा सोशियो इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट से चीजों को समझने की कोशिश करो. unless until they asking the exact science portion, अदरवाइज आप सोशल इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट से देखने की कोशिश करो. धीरे-धीरे क्या है, ये चीजों को आप अपनी कन्वर्सेशन में क्या हम लोग क्या कह रहे हैं, जो मिस्टेक आप इंटरव्यू बोर्ड में करो उसको हटाएं यहाँ से. मिस्टेक आप लोग जो भी कर रहे हो, आई एम ट्राइंग टू एनलाइटन यू, उसको यहाँ हटाओ. चलो आगे बोलो.
Sir, regarding sir Turkey and Joshimath.
Yeah. Just speak to speak for minutes. I want you to speak. That's all. Just speak.
Yes, sir. In Turkey, the reason for this disaster was the seismic activity, but in Joshimath there are some multiple factors responsible for it, as a physical location of that place, which is on the Himalayan region, which is very fragile in seismic zone, seismic sense, as well as sir, this place is located on the alluvial soil, which is not very like stable structure at the base. That's why the problem is arising. And sir, there are some issues with regarding to some projects like hydroelectric power projects and infrastructural development. Those are also increasing the fragility of this region.
हमारा next topic क्या है?
So, one question with regard to yesterday's discussion.
Bhavana, just a minute. Because I joined late, I could not hear the earlier discussion. Have you explained the reasons of this particular tectonic activity? Because it is not a matter of geography, it's a matter of current affairs now. So you are supposed to know exactly what is the reason, which plates are moving, which way is clear. You had explained that? Because I did
No,
not.
sir, that was not explained.
Okay, so you should know this particular thing. Now people have a tendency to become specific. Something which is a talk of the town, then you will not be forgiven for not knowing the specifics. So आप लोग दोनों पढ़ लीजिएगा. It is my advice that both of you you should study. The Arabian plate is moving northwards, and then there is a Eurasian plate. But Turkey is neither on the Arabian plate nor on the Eurasian plate. That is why this is the interesting part. Turkey is on Anatolian plate. Okay. So when this Arabian plate collides with the Eurasian plate, then it has a tendency to push the Anatolian plate sideways. And that is why it is considered one of the most seismically active zones in the world. Turkey sits at the.
Sorry, इसको लिखा ही दो. आप लिख लो इसको. लिख लो. तो repeat कर दो. लिख इसको.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the first point that you should write is that it is on the Anatolian fault line. Anatolia Plateau, you have been studying already in world geography. So, okay. Anatolian fault line पे है. पहली बात है जानने. ठीक है? The second thing is that there are three plates we are talking about. On the east, Arabian plate. On the north, Eurasian plate. And between the two, this particular Anatolian plate is actually like sandwiched or something like that. Okay, it is crushed between the two. So the Arabian plate moves upwards, and in that process, it collides with the Eurasian plate. But in doing so, on its west side, that is the left side, it has a tendency to push it. Push what? The Arabian plate, while moving to the Eurasian plate, has a tendency to push the Anatolian plate sideways towards the west. Let me see if I can draw it, and then you will understand very, very clear. Screen. Yeah, I can share the screen. Acha, this has been disabled, but no problem. हो जाए तो सर अभी करिए. कौस्तुभ, अगर आप सुन रहे हैं तो मेरा स्क्रीन शेयरिंग एनेबल कर दीजिए बस. Yes, now it is enabled. Thank you. Just a minute. And we go to world map पे ही दिखा देते हैं तो easy हो जाएगा. It will be. How should I type? So like late, suppose. Let me see how it comes about. Oh yes, somebody has done it already. Okay, good. That's very good. Understand it this way. Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, see what I am saying. We have here, just a minute. Okay, we have this Arabian plate. You see, this move has the tendency to move northwards. Okay, then this entire thing is Eurasian plate here. Entire thing is Eurasian plate, and this is the plate we are talking about, where Turkey is situated. So it gets wedged into it. ये देखो यहाँ पर एक दो faults बन जाती हैं because of this. This is the North Anatolian fault and this is the East Anatolian fault. You get it? Let me
Yes,
change
sir.
if you have not. Let me go. What is not green? Blue. This blue thing now I am drawing is the East Anatolian fault line. And now
Yes.
I am drawing the North Anatolian fault line, which is much longer. In any case, when this Arabian plate moves this side, it collides with the Eurasian plate, but it has a tendency to push it like this, isn't it? By the very structure of it, it will push this sideways. This will have the tendency to be pushed leftwards, and that is why this happens. So now it is clear, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, dear. Let me stop screen sharing. How do I do that? Let me come back. Okay. Yes, I'll share. We can now resume.
So your screen share is still on.
Still on? Okay, let me
Yes,
see.
sir.
I have paused the sharing. There must be, just a minute, there must be some way. Let me try this one. No problem. Just give me a minute. Okay, you carry on. What I will do, yeah, here it is. I got it.
Yes, sir.
Now we can go ahead.
So
Resume.
with regard to yesterday's discussion,
Yes.
Bangalore and its link with war, was it Bangalore torpedo, the pipe gun?
No, I was not very specific. I was not trying to extract an answer from you. Okay, it was a general query. There are many instances of that sort, but you should be able to point out at least one, what you call, if we can say that, non-violent. It is not. It was never non-violent, but one Gandhian movement, one link to some Gandhian movement, and one revolutionary. Two sides of each story we should know. तो ये अपने को पता आप जहां से भी हैं, wherever you, for example, Akash is from Gujarat, then we should be able to at least cite one Congress movement and one revolutionary movement. That's very necessary. Some incidents, if it has happened, no part of the country has remained untouched with that. So we should be able to dig out.
Yes, sir.
Next.
So certainly uncertainty has declined.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I did not understand this article completely.
तो काम पर नहीं था वो, मैंने पढ़ा आर्टिकल को, ऐसा कुछ खास नहीं है इसमें किया जाए।
So what I only understood was, hello, sir.
हाँ, सुनाओ।
So what I understood from this article was that the global macroeconomic stability is slowly coming back to stability. So even with respect to China, Russia-Ukraine war, and the global tightening of interest rates in developed markets. So all these are slowly bringing back the entire world into a kind of a certainty or a stable period. So this is what I understood from the article. So then there's an article on green growth push.
Bhavana, with respect to the earlier article, I just want to add one input that you should also see this particular article from the perspective of less and less dependence on dollar. As it is happening now, this new trend is coming up. Less and less dependence on dollar, which gives the economies a greater ability to absorb the shocks, external shocks, isn't it? In fact, lesser opportunity to get shocked. Rather than saying greater ability to absorb the shock, there will be lesser opportunity or occasions to get into the shock at the very first place. So this trend and the increasing stability or the increasing perception of stability, they go side by side. We should study them together. What is the role of zonal currency trade zones and all? तो ये थोड़ा सा कोरिलेट करके आप लोग पढ़िएगा कि what is
sir.
the role of this particular trend. New trend has come up, dollar independence. So how does it impact stability?
अगली ग्रुप क्वेश्चन क्या है?
So, and another question in this only, it is about how European dependency on America is increasing.
European dependency on the gas and power is too much. If you see, European dependency is too much. The Ukraine-Russia war is impacting too much to the European powers. तो उन्होंने कैलकुलेशन किया था कि जब ये कहते हैं गैस के दाम बढ़ेंगे तो जब कहते हैं यूरोप में ठंड पड़ेगी, कोल्ड होगा, बहुत ज्यादा दिक्कत आएगी. तो अमेरिका डिपेंडेंस तो नहीं है, ये रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर से डिपेंडेंस और बढ़ रही है. So if you see the Russian-Ukraine war has impacted more to Europe than any other part of the world. Reason being the dependency on the energy sector.
And you should also know the historic, the nostalgia about it. Okay, if you study World War, exactly that is what has happened earlier also. Okay, Europe, England, they came into they jumped into the fight. Okay, well, a little late, they jumped into the fight against the Axis countries. That is what happened. But what happened that when they were suffering massive damage, and they had to go a lot of rough waters, go through a lot of rough waters before they could stabilize. And there were many fronts open here and there, and they were just struggling. They were praying for America to enter the war. That is what exactly happening, if I recollect correctly. And even during that, after the World War, when it concluded, when it came to reparations from the side of the Germany, ultimately, after Keynes was also one of the parties to suggest, one of the experts to suggest that reparation should be kept practical, 6,600 billion or something like that. So ultimately what happened, that a lot of money flowed from America to Europe, because Europe's economy was devastated, completely devastated. Okay, that is Britain. I would like to say, not Europe, Britain. So Europe was already in shambles, obviously, because of the war. So it has happened, it has always happened. Germany was never able to pay the reparations of the war. It could not have, practically speaking. So ultimately, huge loans were advanced by America to these countries which were devastated by war. That is what has happened. So this nostalgic aspect also you should know. That's how it has been. Because what happens exactly is, if Europe is dependent upon some particular country for some economic resources, and America wages a war against this particular country, then Europe, being a necessary what you call party, it becomes a necessary party to the war because of US involvement. That is what happens. And now NATO is also there, so there is an institutional mechanism to pull them all into the war. The moment it happens, Europe's dependency that intensifies. That is what happens. So if Europe does not have that side to lean back on, then US is the only option left. So this has been a trend, historic trend. You should know this.
One more issue, Bhavana, you must have seen this article. What is the impact of the India due to the Ukraine-Russia war, besides the economic considerations, the political and strategic considerations? If the Russia has won the war to Ukraine easily, it has given a lot of support to thought process of China to win India or the Taiwan. The failure of the Russia to win easily the Ukraine has given a message to the world that any country, however smart or big or developed is, they cannot win a national field. So for international relation point of view, it is a great asset for the India that the China cannot think to win to India or to Taiwan. Or you have missed while reading this. So दूसरा point क्या है कि जो restoration हुआ है, जो पूरा रेस्टोरेशन हुआ है, सिस्टम क्या हुआ, आज इजी हो जा रहा है आपके प्राइसेस के इनपुट के लिए. तो जो यूक्रेन रशिया का जो वॉर है, इट हैज ए मल्टी डायमेंशनल इंपैक्ट ऑन वर्ल्ड. एक पॉइंट आप ये भी कहीं नोट कर लो सो दैट आपसे मिस ना हो. व्हेन यू आर ट्राइंग टू एनालाइज द इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन, you not only confine yourself for the economic स्टेबिलिटी और इकोनॉमिक रीजन जो इंडिया ने रूप में क्रिएट किया, इंडिया अपने माल बेच रही है, जो हम लोगों ने पहले डिस्कस किया है, टू ऐड दिस थिंग आल्सो। यह जो बहुत डेंजरस लग रहा था, अगर इन्वेडर्स इजिली किसी पार्ट को जीत लेते, अगर रशिया जीत लेता तो चाइना बता, नहीं रशिया जिस तरह चाइना वहां फेल हुआ है, इसने वर्ल्ड में मैसेज दिया हुआ है, ये आसान नहीं होगा किसी के जीतना, और कोई इन्वेडर ये इस बात को सोच के ये ट्राई करेगा। वन ऑफ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट दे हैव ट्राइड टू एक्सप्रेस हियर।
Sir, another question with regard to Russia-Ukraine war itself. Recently, I heard a speech by the External Affairs Minister saying that Ukraine and Russia war, it can only be seen as a regional conflict. So it need not be extended to say that its impact is there on every other country in the world. So this is what it is said. So
it has been proved regional conflict. If you see, when the situation started, because in the NATO alliance, the Ukraine was going. Russia has started opposing it. From that point, that was a clear point. It appeared that America will participate and other part of it has not happened. It has been proved just a regional conflict. He is perfectly right. If you see the progress of the war, it has confined only to Russia and Ukraine. No one has joined it. There was an apprehension when the situation was tense. It may turn towards a larger area war. It has not been proved. जयशंकर का स्टेटमेंट ठीक है, जयशंकर के मैक्सिमम स्टेटमेंट अच्छे होते हैं. I have seen here, I have read all his statement. I find him very mature speaker, very mature and very emphatic. जो बात कहते हैं कि बात में कनेक्शन होता है.
So then can we say that its impact on the other economies or on other countries is also limited to a certain extent, and it is not
if you see, just confine the India's strategy in the Russia-Ukraine war. India has not supported Russia wholeheartedly, but India has the relations with Russia. Purchase किया, उन्होंने बार-बार कहा कि ये कोई शांति का समय है, यहाँ युद्ध नहीं होना चाहिए, युद्ध ठीक नहीं है. Despite that, India was able to manage a lot of crude oil. अगर आप देखें तो वॉर टाइम में पीस की बात है. You can also say this, ये ऐसा वॉर हो रहा था जो पीस टाइम की बात हो रही थी. इंडिया ने कोई कंसर्न नहीं शो किया अमेरिका क्या करने जा रहा है. इवन पाकिस्तानी प्राइम मिनिस्टर है said openly that one should follow the policy of the Indian foreign policy. तो आप कह सकते हैं कि जो वॉर का कैरेक्टर चेंज हो रहा है. Every nation is seeing their own interest, respecting the human values also.
एक बहुत ही kind of awkward position you can be put into just to test your diplomatic depth and thought process. They may ask you as to why not India, if India is so peace loving, why not India at least give a message economically, if not politically or strategically. At least India could have shifted its oil purchases from Russia to Saudi Arabia. Something like that. Okay, India could have given a subtle message and all. You do not fall into this trap, and give two reasons. One, that in the economic world, we go for price mechanism. The markets, they are to be guided by the price mechanism, number one. Purely economically speaking, we will purchase energy where it is available cheapest to our citizens, number one. That is the guiding factor. Number two, coming to the world economics, what happens that if suppose sanctions are imposed on Russia and countries stop buying oil from there. Falling oil prices in Russia is just one aspect. What is the second aspect? The second aspect is this, that everybody will then be heavily dependent upon the oil supply of the Arabian countries. I mean here OPEC countries, isn't it? And the moment this crowding in happens there, then the prices will skyrocket. And it will further damage India's fiscal deficits, because we will have to purchase it at a very higher cost because of the competition that we will face there. So that is how it is happening. Okay. So India has no other way, in fact. In order to make sure that we get the energy at a cheap price, we have to depend on Russia. So it is purely economically also and in national interest also. Both ways, we are better off buying Russian oil. Number two, if you get a chance and the environment is cordial there in the board, then do not hesitate in bringing out the hypocrisy of Europe also. Okay. For doing that, you will need to study it at a deeper level. Just revisit the sanctions which have been imposed on Russia. Okay. And you will immediately notice the hypocrisy. Okay. Selective. The sanctions are very selective. If you see, you jot down your point, 2-3 points from that. Study it. I'm giving you homework. Study it. You will find 2-3 points. And Jaishankar sir has already, if you don't want to go the long route, then take a short route. Just listen to Jaishankar sir's speeches, where he has clearly pointed out Europe's hypocrisy. They are banning certain aspects and they are not banning certain aspects. They are doing transactions with Russia. So that will give you a perspective.
If you try to see the history, the Napoleon has implemented a continental policy where he has banned the England's export to outside world. And what he said, he was trying to smuggle it because he was dependent upon the England's item for the war. If you try to see from historical point of view, it always happened. अब जो यूरोप है वो बगैर एनर्जी के रह नहीं सकता. एनर्जी आएगी कहाँ से? और देयर इज अ लिमिटेशन ऑफ एनर्जी. अगर अमेरिका ने सैंक्शन लगा दिया, क्या होगा? डॉलर ट्रेड नहीं होगा. सैंक्शन नहीं मतलब हो गया डॉलर ट्रेड नहीं हुआ. तो only meaning of this, only substantive meaning of the sanction, you cannot trade in the dollar. इंडिया ने क्या किया? इंडिया ने रास्ता निकाल दिया, हम रूपी ट्रेड करेंगे. तो सैंक्शन का मतलब है खत्म हो गया हमारे लिए. बट फॉर अदर पार्ट ऑफ वर्ल्ड दे हैव टू टेक इट फॉर. जो अमेरिका बहुत इसमें कुछ कर क्यों नहीं पा रहा है? अमेरिका के एलाइज ही अंदर से उनके साथ नहीं है, उनके साथ नहीं है, क्योंकि हर आदमी के अपने अपने इंटरेस्ट है, वो इंटरेस्ट फुलफिल नहीं हो पा रहे हैं. दिस इज द सो मेनी कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस इन होल पॉलिसी. तो हल्का से पढ़ लेना तो और स्टाफ होगी, क्योंकि अमेरिका, यूक्रेन, रशिया, ये सब बड़े अच्छे टॉपिक है पूछने के लिए. और फॉरेन सर्विस के लोग बहुत बैठते हैं इंटरव्यू में, बहुत आते हैं. इसलिए मैंने पता किया है 4-5 फॉरेन सर्विस के आदमी बैठ रहे हैं. तो पता नहीं किस बोर्ड में बैठ जाए. जिसको जो ज्यादा आता है वही बोलता है. जैसे हम लोग बैठे हैं तो जो हमारा कोर एरिया है उसी पूछने की कोशिश करेंगे, तो ऑब्वियस चीज है ना.
So there is one more thing, sir. If they give this kind of answer, if you ever attempt this kind of answer, dollar trade will not be there, sanction this and that, you may be asked as to what stops the countries from not obeying this particular sanction. How India and other countries are bound. We are not bound to do that. Nah? If US says that dollar trade will not happen with Russia, how do we get affected by this? That is why we are looking for some other windows, na? The rupee trade zone, this and that. But what is the main problem? You should know. The main problem is that this voluntary kind of act becomes a binding act because of the fact that the mechanism through which dollar trade happens right now is called SWIFT, if I correctly remember that particular thing, that particular phraseology. SWIFT is the mechanism. Suppose India wants to trade with Russia, then we will have to give order to our bank. Our bank will order the bank that holds dollar. Then this, you understand my point? There is a network by which the order is given. That network or network of placing order and making payment is called SWIFT, because it is those banks, US banks, which hold the dollars. Because of the dependency of all the countries, all the major countries are dependent on this network actually. That is why what is theoretically an option practically becomes binding on all the countries, because we can't do anything because they control the SWIFT. So study this aspect also, SWIFT, how SWIFT operates. That will give you a lot of perspective, because this is how practically America, US controls the world trade, dollar trade. You get my point?
Sir, I had missed out one aspect is SWIFT. What is the other aspect?
This is what SWIFT only. I am saying because see, diplomatically they say that all countries should refrain from trading, and this sounds like an option. No, if we don't have any problem with Russia, why should we stop trading? But because most of the trade happens through dollar, and the mechanism is called this interbank network. That bank network is called SWIFT, and this SWIFT is practically controlled by all of them there. That is why what is practically happening, do you know what is happening in the real world? If I followed the news correctly, what happened? That since what has been declared as a blasphemy is that Russian oil should not be imported. That is what has been banned. So what they are doing, they are turning their GPS off in the mid-ocean. Okay, the ships which are emanating from Russian ports, they are having Russian oil. They will turn their GPS off completely. So there's no flagging that this is coming from Russia. And in mid-ocean, they will change the routes and there are no more ships coming from Russia. So that's how they are trying to defeat it. You should know that also. So study this aspect. This is a burning question, and you can expect questions from there.
एक basic issue हम लोगों ने discuss किया था, जरूर याद रखना. Suppose you are doing a rupee trade with Russia. Your economy should be such a strong one that you are able to adjust the rupee. आप जो रुपये दे रहे हो, उनको किसी तरह वो आपका रुपया लेके करेंगे क्या? वो कुछ नहीं करेंगे. तो आपने जो रुपया दिया, उस रुपये के बदले कुछ दे पाओ उनको. India is working on the agricultural exports. India is working to allow the investment in the rupee. India is allowing to invest in the Indian security bond rupee. अब इसमें आगे आओ कि why India can do, why China can do, why small country cannot do, because only the larger economy can do. पाकिस्तान नहीं कर सकता ये. अभी पाकिस्तान अपनी करेंसी दे, कौन लेने वाला है उसकी? कीमत ही नहीं उसकी करेंसी की. अभी ये काम नेपाल करे, कौन करेंसी लेगा? तो आप इससे एक स्टेप और आगे जाओ. We have to work if we want to strengthen this aspect to have the rupee trade in the long run. And imagine the situation of the 40-50 years beyond the line. We want to replace the dollar trade and work on the rupee trade. Our economy is like that. I can supply the items required to the Russia. I can supply the item required to the European Union. So India's economy in such a stage that they are able to replace the rupee with the investment opportunities there. तो इससे आप एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग और समझाइए बोर्ड को कि इसको इकोनॉमिक समझ है कि कैसे रूपी ट्रेड हो सकता है. मान लो अमेरिका सैंक्शन डॉलर का लगा दे, आपके रूपी का रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं आ रहा है, आपकी फॉरेन पॉलिसी फेल कर जाएगी. ये फॉरेन पॉलिसी बगैर इकोनॉमिक से आगे नहीं बढ़ सकती है. ये फॉरेन पॉलिसी तभी सक्सीड हो पाएगी जब आप उनकी इकोनॉमिक्स को सेटिस्फाई कर पाओगे, और इंडिया ऐसे स्टेप लेके सेटिस्फाई कर रही है. तो बिसाइड द strategical or other reason, economical reason also helping to India. That's why Pakistan is crying, Afghanistan is crying, all the small nations are crying, Iran is crying, because अब ईरान के पास क्या है सिवाय तेल के? कुछ नहीं है. तो इंडिया को अपनी इकोनॉमी वैसे स्ट्रॉन्ग करना होगा कि वह रूस की जरूरत की चीजों को सप्लाई कर सके. इसको भी आप ऐड करना.
Yes, sir. Sir, and another question in this only, that India is acting as a middleman and trading Russian oil and making profits from it. Sir, that certain refineries and certain oil refining companies which are based in India, they are acting as middlemen. They are in fact purchasing oil from Russia and they are selling it to Europe and they are making profit from it.
Yes.
So can we?
Yes. तो अगर इंडिया का एक्सपोर्ट देखो, इंडिया के एक्सपोर्ट में पेट्रोल प्रोडक्ट्स पे ध्यान दो, ठीक ठाक है, अच्छे खासे हैं. तो अगर इंडिया उनको लाएगा तो इंडिया का तो बिजनेस बढ़ेगा ही बढ़ेगा ना. इंडिया कर भी रही है ये. आप एक बार क्या इंडिया का एक्सपोर्ट देख लो, उसमें वो पेट्रोल प्रोडक्ट्स कितना है, आपको इसका आंसर उसी मिल जाएगा.
Bhavana,
Yes,
please study this topic more closely and more sharply as to whether the term middleman is correct to use in this context. Why? Because are we just trading the oil or are we selling it after refinement?
So that is the confusion. I think we are selling it after refinement, but then
Exactly.
some newspapers have said that.
Okay. Just see it clearly, because if it is refinement, then it is there's nothing to be. I mean, there's no taboo about it, isn't it? It is like we get raw material from any country. We get raw material from Russia. We are not masking the product. Then we are not masking the product. We are giving a different product to the European countries. That if we are getting raw material at a lower price, it's pure business ethics. Nothing wrong in it.
भारत ये पहले भी करता रहा है, भारत तो कर ही रहा है ना। भारत का जो पेट्रोल प्रोडक्ट का एक्सपोर्ट यही तो है ना। भारत उसमें अपना कुछ इनपुट लगा के उस प्रोडक्ट को कुछ रिफाइन करके बेचता है। अब वो जो रॉ मटेरियल वो रूस से ले रहा है, क्या खा रही है? तो सोलर सेल जिसके है ना, जो रूस से ले रहा है, उसको क्या खा रहा है? तो खा नहीं।
So we are not smuggling Russian oil into Europe. That should be the punchline.
Yes, sir. So there's an article on green growth push.
Yeah.
Sir, in this article, they have focused on the new schemes, which have got a long-term green growth and sustainable development in vision. And it wants to move towards net zero emission by 2070. So for that, schemes like Mishti, PM Pranam, and Green Credit Facility, these were the major schemes which were given in the recent budget, sir. So the article focuses on that. Sir, it is mainly factual, and it also talks about setting up National Green Hydrogen Mission.
जो पैसा है, जो साइजेबल अमाउंट दिया गया है, उसको लोग यूज कर रहे हैं ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन में प्रमोट करने में। Detailed guidelines for preparation.
Sir, one question can be the importance of green hydrogen for India. Why are we pushing for green hydrogen? Although at present it's not commercially viable. Sir, I feel that India needs to diversify its energy basket and also go for energy transition, because we are an oil importing country. And when we are open to having other kinds of clean energy with improvement in technology and more innovation and safety issues are sorted, then green hydrogen can be a very promising fuel in future for India. Because right now, even the electric vehicles which are using battery, even we found out that there are certain environmental hazards which is caused because of battery technology, like the processing of lithium or any other rare earth metals and chemicals which are used in battery. So that can again create an environmental hazard. So going in for green hydrogen can help us find a cleaner and a purer source of energy as compared to fossil fuel. It can also help us to reduce our import of crude oil. So these are the main reasons why India should push for technology in green hydrogen to make it commercially viable.
और ऐसा आंसर भी सकते हो कि जो भी काम हम लोग शुरू करते हैं, शुरू में तो फायदा नहीं होता है, वो डिविडेंड देता है इन लॉन्ग रन होता है। तो सोलर एनर्जी शुरू वाइट थी, दिस टाइप ऑफ इशू वाज विद द सोलर एनर्जी आल्सो। जो ये पूरा का पूरा सिस्टम है जो चल रहा है, इसमें जो भी फंड प्रोवाइड किया जाएगा, जो ग्रीन पुश दिया जा रहा है, क्या है, यह एक लास्टिंग डिविडेंड देगा। दूसरा एक एनालिसिस शायद हिंदू ने किया था कि इंडिया इज बिकमिंग द ग्रीन ग्लोबल लीडर। हिंदू के एनालिसिस थी, हम उसे डिस्कस किए थे, आप इसको भी ऐड करना उसमें।
Yes, sir.
2 points of criticism you should study more. First point you have already spoken of, that how to recycle the batteries, how to take care of the hazard that comes out as a product of this entire project. And one aspect which is very less discussed is this, that right now, ultimately, if you see the bigger picture, then these batteries have to be charged with the help of electricity. And if India's current position on electricity is like this, that we are actually burning coal to produce that electricity, thermal power, if we are dependent on thermal power, then isn't it all the more harmful than ICE vehicles? So this aspect you need to study more. So, okay, this aspect you must study. This is one of the leading arguments against the perceived benefits of EVs, that ultimately you are using electricity, and for electricity we are burning fossil fuel. So ultimately, isn't it the case that it is all the more, it is going to be even more harmful in the long run? So that is one aspect. The second aspect, you do not hesitate in giving the example of China, which we have discussed, if I am correct. that when China started investing in solar energy, it was on the same footing and it was just not at all viable. But China took it upon itself, encouraged its private players to research and development in this field, and brought it to the level that it has become profitable now, and it has become in vogue in the entire world at this time. So they coincided, bringing down the cost of manufacturing or cost of construction of solar panels, and they coincided it with the demand for alternate source of energy. So that kind of thought process needs to be done, that we plan it in long term in such a manner. Then hydrogen, we may find it commercially unviable at this time. However, we should plan it in long term or medium term in such a manner that by the time it becomes a necessity, we become the masters of manufacturing that, or masters of we master the economic viability of that particular product. It is not going to happen in a year or a couple of years, but this can be done as a policy measure. That's how you should argue.
So can we say that green hydrogen has more potential than even the renewable sources of energy? Because whether it is wind, solar, it would require large-scale land acquisition and large-scale investments, and also investments in erecting solar panels. Whereas green hydrogen can do away with these kind of investments. So
there are three parameters on the basis of which you discuss any alternative for fuel. There are three parameters essentially. One is its efficiency. Second is economic viability. Third is regional practicability. The region that we are talking about. Okay. For example, India, South Asia, this and that. That also has a great say in which particular alternate is best suited. So you use these three parameters. So yes, hydrogen is much more efficient. Yes, that is there. The second is that it is right now not economically viable, but we can somehow make it economically viable. And third, if the regions, if this region is suited for that kind of experiment, then we must go for it. So these three things you can: practicability, viability, efficiency. And the sum total of these three is called sustainability.
Yes, sir. Sir, in Indian Express, there was an article by Ashok Gulati from Dole to Development.
आर्टिकल हमेशा बहुत अच्छा होता है। अशोक गुलाटी जितने आर्टिकल्स हैं हमेशा बहुत अच्छे लिखते हैं। एक आर्टिकल लिखते हैं एग्रीकल्चर को बेस करके, जनरली आप ठीक है। अगर हमने जो पिछला अशोक गुलाटी का डिस्कस किया था, कुछ इसी टाइप का उनका था लास्ट टाइम भी, याद है?
Yes, sir.
Tell us the major points, Bhavana, and if any questions that arose in your mind.
So the major points was that the article focused on three main things, especially in rural areas. One is Jal Jeevan Mission, rural housing. And it also focuses on capital expenditure for development of infrastructure, railway and the road.
Which is one of the key highlights of this budget also, isn't it?
Yes, sir. So other than this, he talks about how Gati Shakti and reduction in the logistics cost. That has been the prime focus because the budget has got major allocation for infrastructure. Then again, the article speaks about the success of Pradhan Mantri Gramin Awas Yojana, wherein they have the outlay has been increased to almost 54,000 crores, which is a drastic improvement from the allocation in last year budget. And another improvement is in Jal Jeevan Mission and how it creates, how it brings dignity to the rural life, improvement in sanitation and access to water. So these two things the article has majorly focused on. And what he's saying is that there is a lack of investment in agriculture research. The only thing that is done for agriculture research is the setting up of an agriculture accelerator fund. So this is only done to agriculture, whereas remaining aspects has not been, with respect to agriculture, it's not been adequately expressed. But another positive aspect is with regard to the promotion of high value horticulture crops in Atmanirbhar Clean Plant Program. So this is a positive aspect. And again, an outlay for storage facilities, improving the value chain infrastructure. These have also been focused on the budget. So this was a basic gist of the articles.
I will advise you to pick up these phrases and use it in your answers. I think there will be multiple occasions when you will be required to use these phrases. So just pick out. This is not conceptually very deep or stirring. It is in an informative article and a thought-provoking article, no doubt. But the best use that you can make of this particular article is you just pick out 5 to 6 good phrases and use them in your answer. That's my advice. Otherwise, I think this is simple, simply put.
Yes,
the
sir.
most you can go behind is what is the macroeconomic thought behind these kinds of policies. So you use the term dignity. So how come dignity becomes an important factor for economic development? So then you go for sustainable development and inclusive growth and this and that. Then you integrate this concept, in India, in a democracy like India, in a welfare state like India. This is constitutionally mandated that right to life includes right to live with dignity and all. So you can just cross-link all these concepts and make a good answer out of it. So that's one aspect. Second,
जो लास्ट आर्टिकल था ऑलमोस्ट सेम आर्टिकल है ऑलमोस्ट
Yes, sir.
लास्ट आर्टिकल में उन्होंने कहा था कि आप जो है सब्सिडी पे आपने काम कम किया है, उन्होंने वेलकम किया था और कहा है कि एग्रीकल्चर के रिसर्च और डेवलपमेंट पे काम होना चाहिए, शायद 1% होना चाहिए था, 0.5% होता है, इफ आई रिमेंबर करेक्टली, देखना और चैट में होगा आर्टिकल, ऑलमोस्ट सेम चीज है, नथिंग मोर हैज डन. आई डोंट थिंक देयर इज मच रिक्वायर्ड टू डिस्कस ऑन दिस.
आकाश,
Yes, sir.
गवर्नमेंट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर पर इतना फोकस क्यों करती है? What is your view?
Sir, because capital expenditure creates assets which are permanent in nature, and it increases the productivity of our economy. And it says that 1 rupee spent in capital expenditure, it generates 2.5 times more wealth out of it.
Exactly. And what is it called? What is this phenomenon called?
Sir, sorry, sir.
In macroeconomy, we call this particular phenomena, we describe it as multiplier effect.
Yes, multiplier.
Multiplier effect. So different economies have different multiplier effects. In the case of India, as you have rightly told, about 2 to 3 times. It gives out 2 to 3 times of the money. That is why it is always advisable, please listen to this carefully. That is why government should always try to prioritize its expenditure towards capital expenditure first and then transfer payments. If absolutely inescapable, only then. नहीं तो सब्सिडी देने से क्या होता है, डायरेक्ट ट्रांसफर, अगर आप ट्रांसफर पेमेंट्स कर देंगे, then that will not benefit from the multiplier effect. In fact, it will go and add to the inflationary pressures. But if the same money goes through capital expenditure, it will take time. There is no doubt about it. It will have an incubation period. But because of multiplier effect, it will kind of do a dressing on the wound of inflationary scars. इन्फ्लेशन वगैरह से और जो मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक इंस्टेबिलिटी की वजह से जो स्कार्स, जो वुंड्स हो जाते हैं इकोनॉमी में, उसको धीरे धीरे वो मरहम लगा के उसको ठीक कर देता है इन द लॉन्ग टर्म. दैट इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. यू शुड नो, बिकॉज दिस वाज हेडलाइन in this year's budget that we will tax less, spend more on capex. So you should be, ready for a question.
Yes.
Sir, to add to that, can we say that it also attracts private investment and again creates even trickle down effect?
Yes, there is a different concept for this. This is called expectation of return on investment. It's a different macroeconomic theory altogether. So what happens that when they see the government is spending on capex, government is spending to improve infrastructure and overall business environment, then the private parties, the private entrepreneurs, they also get assured of the future outcomes as to how this is going to play out. So they get the sentiment that the government is supporting ease of doing business and all. And then instead of parking their funds somewhere else for short-term gains, they get inclined to reinvest it in their own business and expand. And that is how this again creates a multiplier effect. More jobs, more kick to the economic cycle, easing out the supply side economics. So these things start happening. So it has, yes, it has a salutary effect on the private investment also. Absolutely right.
So the next article is on embattled green hydropower projects in Himalaya. So this, I think we finished it in the start when I was detailing about the Joshimath. I added the aspects of this article also in that article.
So Bhavana, tell me, then answer me. And it is a trick question. I'll warn you in advance. Both of you, tell me, what is the most important requirement for setting up a hydro electric power plant in an area?
So the area should be conducive enough and it should be able to hold the hydroelectric power plant.
Akash.
Akash, you're not audible. You're muted.
Yes, sir. Sir, it depends on the terrain and the physiographical feature of the particular region.
The answer is demand for electricity. Okay, that was the trick question. Obviously, the first thing when you talk of these things, then we try to be innovative. Unless there is a demand for electricity, who would put up a hydroelectricity project, isn't it? Demand is the first factor that is necessary. So the purpose was just to ignite your mind to broaden it. Not only physiographic and geographical and all. Think wide, think broader.
So in this article, he focuses on moving towards micro hydroelectric projects as opposed to going on large scale hydroelectric projects.
And why? Now the question comes. Now comes the serious question. Why micro hydroelectric projects will be more successful? Why? Now you explain.
Sir, considering the region of Himalayas, it is a very fragile region. And also the streams, the river streams, they are at their youngest stage. So in this region, when we set up the micro hydroelectric or run of the river projects, the generation of electricity per head will be more compared to going for large scale hydroelectric projects. And also it might lead to inundation of lot of water behind the dams, which can again have tectonic and effects on the local geography also. So it can even lead to submergence of land. So because of these, we would prefer micro hydroelectric projects.
Good answer. And you also think of this thing that if you consider all the rivers which are flowing, you have already said that indirectly, but if you consider the pathways that the rivers take, especially in the Shivaliks, Shivalik is the area, okay, which the rivers cut down ultimately and then come to the plains. So they, what happens that they're very abrupt and very sharp. Some of the, as you move eastwards, then you find that they are abrupt and sharp river courses, which is the natural course that it is supposed to do. So to preserve or to cause minimum damage to the natural course of a river and the hydroecology of the entire region, micro hydroelectric projects are the best because they influence or they damage the natural setup the least. And then the impact side is already there. As you rightly pointed out, that tectonic effects of small projects, they are, even if taken together, they are not as much as the tectonic effect of one particular dam. You remember any incidents from within our country? Any particular earthquake or any tremor which was caused due to a dam?
Sir, in Maharashtra, in fact, the Latur earthquake, it was caused because of the inundation of large water.
A dam was there, some dam?
Yes,
in
sir.
Maharashtra and Karnataka, I think this was
Koina Dam.
Koina Dam.
Yes, sir. Koina Dam, and it caused the Latur earthquake.
This is why I wanted to point out this, that this is not a mere speculation, not a mere tectonic speculation. It is a reality that this does cause tectonic impacts.
So there's another article on MG Narega. And in fact, even in explained page also, they have given cutting of the Narega budget and what impact it is going to have. Sir, in fact, the allocation for MG Narega program has been lower even compared to that of 2017 and 2018 budget. So the reasons why it has been reduced is because it is considered that the economy has fully recovered from the pandemic effect. And our Indian economy will not be having too much of influence from other global economic situation which is currently going on. So these were the two reasons that were taken, saying that the Indian economy is recovering and it is completely recovered. And now we need not allocate too much on MG Narega, which was needed during the period of COVID. So then it goes on to say how realistic is this particular assessment, whether it is realistic or what are the parameters that they have considered. One they have considered is the tractor sale in the rural area. And also the year-on-year increase for rural consumer price inflation. Sir, I have not understood this part well, sir. When he talks about the increase of rural consumer price inflation and how we can take that as a parameter for saying that the rural economy has improved. So that part I did not understand. Sir, other than this, he says that there has been pickup in rural wage and also growth in tractor sales. So because of which we can say the rural economy has recovered and we need not have too much of allocation for MG Narega. We can focus towards the skill development and training, which the budget has done by giving allocation under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. So that is one aspect. Sir, another question he has addressed is Manrega and food subsidy. Have the budgets been cut or hiked for other flagship rural schemes? Again, in this budget, there has been no talk of increasing the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi. So it has been maintained at the same rate. And the focus is mainly on Jal Jeevan Mission and Pradhan Mantri Gramin Awas Yojana. So these are the two things that this article again speaks of.
Let's talk about some points. Number one, please understand this carefully, Akash and Bhavana, both of you. So long as the overall allocation towards the rural economy is there and merely changing the subheads, no reason to worry. Okay, there's no point for criticism. The only thing that the government is altering is the manner in which the push-up or fillip is given to the rural economy. Okay, direct method, indirect method, through capex or through direct wages. That is a discretion of the government based on the experience and real-time feedback that the government gives. So long as the overall, as you rightly pointed out somewhere while you were reading, that even though allocation has been less for MG Narega and all, but ultimately it is approaching, the government is approaching the same problem through a different avenue, okay, isn't it? So first point, so long as the overall allocation towards the rural economy is as per the commitment of the government, there's no reason to criticize quantitatively. Now come to the quality. Why Manrega? Why there was a need to reduce? Because there were certain unintended consequences also, which the policy makers perhaps, we should not say, we should not go into it. There were certain consequences which were not essentially predicted. And that is why not only MG Narega has been one of the most successful schemes to have served its own purpose. Remember that, start with this punchline. So there's no doubt that MG Narega is one of the most successful schemes, so long as strengthening the rural economy is concerned, so long as improving the living conditions of the rural populace is concerned. It is one of the finest schemes that could have ever been introduced, no doubt. However, Ultimately, let us analyze it macroeconomically as to what it has essentially done. It has placed money in the hands of the people directly. Because Maganrega is what? It is a wage payment scheme, isn't it? So wages are paid. And let us now analyze as to what is the corresponding infrastructure that is formed. Which kind of infrastructure is mostly formed? The practical reality is that it is at most some roads. That is all. Some roads, some basic infrastructure, very basic infrastructure, which would not have the same multiplier effect had the government chosen to directly invest this money in capex. But at the time of crisis, it was the choice. It was the best choice that the government could have made, because ultimately at that time, what was most necessary? To have some disposable income in the hands of the rural people, so that it can reflect itself where?
Consumption.
Consumption, exactly, Bhavana. You got it. Absolutely right. So that we can give a push to consumption. This is a very great portion of our entire population we are talking about, isn't it? So consumption is the key word. If you talk about Maganrega, consumption should be the key word. So consumption and improvement in the living conditions. These are the two words, two lenses through which you should look at that scheme. Acha bhai. So for all these years, when there was a crisis driven by what we call lackluster consumption, driven by poor consumption. This was the cycle, okay? Growth, consumption, employment. So we were hit by a very appalling state of consumption. For that, they introduced Maganrega. Okay, fine, that happened. People were taken out of abject crisis, and consumption was at satisfactory level. It only makes sense to revise and revisit this scheme now, because now what is the demand? Now we have to correct the supply side. So जैसे economy crisis से बाहर निकल रही है, what we are saying, you already have understood, if you have studied economics, you know that elasticity of the supply side is very less. Supply side is very inelastic. वो तुरंत adjust नहीं कर सकता अपने चीज को. Demand side adjust कर लेती है कि अच्छा बहुत महंगा हुआ, नहीं लेंगे, नहीं खरीदेंगे, isn't it? They will not buy it if it becomes very costlier. But the supply side cannot adjust very quickly. It takes its incubation period. They will adjust the capacity. They will have to thin out the employment and all, adjust all these things. So what I'm saying, the summary is this: when demand side intervention was needed, consumption was needed to be pushed, then schemes like this were introduced. For these many years, they have successfully served their purpose. So reduction of allocation to this scheme does not by any means indicate that the importance of these schemes has been reduced or undermined. No, they have, in the time frame, they have served their purpose now. So government is merely relocating the resources to the area where the problem exists now, and that is the supply side things. Now coming to your specific question that you had asked, yes, sir, I did not understand this consumer price, rural consumer price. I think now you got your answer, because the consumption was the key ingredient on which we were focusing. So rural economy, how rural economy is functioning, that is gauged by different parameters. कि tractor कितना कोई खरीद रहा है, what is the consumption of fertilizers, this and that. So consumption, rural consumption is one of the key ingredients to judge whether rural economy is performing well or not. Okay, तो उनको rural economy को urban economy की तरह multiple factors बहुत सारे नहीं available होते हैं. There are certain key ingredients only available. So rural consumption is one of them. So if rural consumption picked up, it means that Maganrega served its purpose, isn't it? Simply said, that's what it was intended to do.
Yes, sir. Sir, can we also say that, in fact, the reallocation of funds from Manrega to other schemes, that it is to nudge the people to go towards more skilled work and to have that shift from unskilled wage labor to skilling of people?
Naturally, and you should not forget to cite an example, which is a well-studied example, if I am right. I mean, I have read it somewhere in some paper only, that what used to the only. Suppose you are asked, अच्छा एक side effect भी तो बताइए. You are praising it aloud, Maganrega scheme. At least tell us one side effect that it had. So first side effect you already said, that it promoted only unskilled labor. That is one. What is the second side effect? The second side effect is like this, my dear. what happened? When the unskilled labor got such an opportunity to earn wages, I mean, without much of discomfort, then what happened? The labor that was employed in the farming sector, that got shifted into infrastructure sector, and the farmers were finding it very, very hard to find labor at a reasonable price, and it turned out into a farming crisis. Then this is a reality. We are farmers. I am from a farmer family, and I am telling you, this is a real example from my village. People were finding it, the farmers were finding it, cultivars were finding it very, very hard to find good labor. Good, forget about good, any amount of labor, because all the labors, they shifted towards this particular lucrative scheme. So on one hand, it did not allow an incentive to skilled workers. On the second hand, it also caused stress to the farm labor. These 2 points you should mention.
Sir, other than this, there's an article written by Sonia Gandhi ji, and it is like an entire criticism of the budget. So that it is, sir, I read it, but I did not feel that it was very relevant.
That's fine. Just 2-3 points at least you should take out. Which are the good points you think? Good, I mean, good in the terms of which are clear in the article. Clearly, they are crystallized. What are those points?
The allocation on social sector schemes has been reduced because of the push for a new tax regime. So there has been no incentive to save.
All right.
So this was one of the key points. Then again, the same thing with respect to allocation, reduced allocation in food. The withdrawing of the scheme, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, the additional 5 kg, which is given to people. Again, on reduced allocation to MG Narega. And in general, the social sector or teaching, education and health. So these have been neglected completely in the budget, and they are focusing only on capital expenditure, which they feel that it will lead to trickle down effect. Whereas it is not giving anything to the hands of the poor or the vulnerable, and they are leaving them out in open.
I think they are valid points for discussion.
Yes,
we
sir.
should not underrate these criticisms just because it comes from opposition. That's wonderful. I mean, these are good points, good talking points. So one we have already addressed. Maganrega thing we have already addressed, that yes, it was required to be reduced because now the focus is shifting to somewhere else. But then there are certain other points such as social sector spending. And the second point, what did you say? You said this, that they are shifting to what? The capex. They are shifting to capex, and they are relying on the perception that it will lead to trickle down effect, even though they are not sure that it will benefit the lower strata. So you just take these points, think about them, and we will talk tomorrow maybe. Points that you have told now, those 4 points, you summarized 4 points. Or you do one thing, just share this particular article on the Telegram, if not already shared.
Yes, I'll share it.
Because why I want this article to be read by both of you, I'll tell you. What if some member from the panel, from the board, they say, "Acha, tell us 3 good things and 3 bad things about the budget." Okay, then we'll get trapped. We are all studying the good parts of budget and logically justifying it. At least have a couple of points against it also. It is always advisable.
So there's another article on price cap energy geopolitics. It is again about how US petro firms have benefited from sanctions on Russia.
Right. That's a good point. No direct questions would be asked, to my understanding, most likelihood. In most likelihood, no direct questions will be asked, but this point will help you when you tackle this particular problem of Russia-Ukraine war and India's perspective, India's stand on that. So इसमें से बस वही एक point निकालो. Just get one point as to how this thing has worked.
So one point, yes sir.
Basically क्या है भावना, इसमें उन्होंने ये दिखाने की कोशिश की है कि जो यूरोप है इतना ज्यादा एडवर्सली इम्पैक्ट क्यों हो रहा है, बिकॉज जो यूरोप है वो बहुत ज्यादा डिपेंडेंट है रशियन क्रूड ऑयल एंड प्रोडक्ट पे, और ये वॉर उनको बहुत ज्यादा डैमेज कर रहा है. अमेरिका ने जो कुछ वॉर्स में अमेरिका हैज डन इन दिस यूक्रेन रशिया वॉर, it has impacted more to Europe than any other country. जो प्राइस कैप है, एनर्जी है, जो प्रोडक्ट है, यूएस प्रोडक्ट, इससे फायदा क्या हो रहा है? फायदा किसको हो रहा है? यूएस पेट्रोल फर्म्स को हो रहा है। तो इन्होंने यह, if you see the economics of business point of view, so America is having a lot advantage by putting sanctions. Russia is not so much impacted as America's profit is impacted. रूस क्या हो रहा है? ऐसे जगह पुश किया जा रहा है कि वह एनर्जी में अमेरिका पर डिपेंडेंट हो जाए. In the market, the cheap item is available, but it has been sanctioned. So now the America, now the Europe is depending upon the America's energy. तो अमेरिका की एनर्जी पर जब यूरोप डिपेंडेंट होने लग गया, उसका फायदा नुकसान किसको हो रहा है? इसमें किया क्या जाए? नाउ कम ऑन दिस, इसका जो फर्क हो रहा है, व्हाट इज रेमेडी? तो इसमें यूरोप करे क्या? कौन दिस एस्पेक्ट, व्हाट यूरोप शुड डू?
Sir, right now Europe is already importing oil or its gas needs from America only. So in that way, they are USA is benefiting, and in fact, Europe is not. Europe is the most troubled because of sanctions from US on Russia, because Europe was earlier, it was largely dependent on the Russian crude, especially during winter. The only thing which has saved Europe is that the winters are less harsh this time. So their energy requirement has also reduced, and currently they are doing with the oil that they are getting from Saudi Arabia, that is the West Asian countries, and from US. So this is how Europe is managing its crisis.
अगर इस वॉर को आप एनर्जी जियोपॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन से देखो तो आप क्या कहोगे? If you see the whole war with a single objective, that energy geopolitical situation, आप क्या बोलोगे? बताओ.
Sir, with respect to energy, it is the geological advantage that few countries have, wherein they have crude oil supply, and which they use it for exporting, and they exploit it in their own interest. So in this case, we can say that US, by putting sanctions on Russia, it is trying to control the oil market in the entire world. Again, sir, it can create concerns even for Saudi Arabia also. Because if US today has put sanctions on Russia, then even Saudi Arabia or any other OPEC countries, they might also be wary, thinking that in future US can put any kind of sanctions even on them. So it is not very clear whether how their exports will be impacted in future. So I think
आप इसमें भावना फायदा सिर्फ रशिया और अमेरिका हो रहा है. अगर रशिया का आप उसको देखो, रशिया ज्यादा अर्न कर रहा है प्रायर टू यूक्रेन इन्वेजन, और सेकेंडली जो कहते हैं यूरोपियन पावर है वह अमेरिका पर डिपेंडेंट हो गई. तो ये है जो रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर है, इसने एनर्जी की जियोपॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन को चेंज कर दिया है. पहले यह बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट में समझ लेते हैं. तो फर्स्ट थिंग यू नोट डाउन कि द होल जो रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर है, इसने दो तरह से इम्पैक्ट किया है. पहला क्या किया है कि जो रशिया का एक्सपोर्ट हुआ करता था, रशिया जो अर्न करता था यूक्रेन वॉर से ज्यादा कर रहा है. दूसरा क्या हो रहा है कि यूरोप है वह इससे एडवर्सली इंपैक्ट हो रहा है, क्योंकि वह इस प्रपोर्शनली डिपेंडेंट था ऑन रशियन क्रूड प्रोडक्ट्स पे. अब वो कर क्या रहे हैं? अब उनका ये जो कहते हैं जो उनका सप्लाई है वो टर्न हो रहा है यूएस, मिडिल ईस्ट एंड इंडिया. इंडिया तक से वो अप्रोच कर रहे हैं. जो आप बोलो ना कि इंडिया रशिया की माल को बेच रहा है, तो इंडिया यही कर रहा है. इंडिया पे बैलून डील चल रहा है, तो वो जो रशिया से उनका इंपोर्ट बंद हो गया, यूएस, मिडिल ईस्ट और इंडिया के पास आ गए शॉर्टफॉल के लिए. और इनका जो कार्गो है ये यूरोपियन मार्केट की तरह एक प्रीमियम में रीडायरेक्ट होने लग गया है. अब जो इंडियन रिफाइनरीज क्या कर रही है, ये सोर्स कर रही है क्रूड फ्रॉम द ईस्टर्न सीबोर्ड ऑफ रशिया. और वहां से जामनगर की रिफाइनरी का इस्तेमाल करके अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को मिलने को यूरोप की तरफ भेज रही हैं। अब जो ये आपका जो इंटरनेशनल जो आपका ट्रेडिंग होने लगा है, इससे क्या हो गया, शिपिंग मार्केट भी इंडिया का ग्रो करने लग गया है। अगर आप देखें तो जो शिपिंग कंपनियों के जो स्टॉक प्राइसेस हैं, ये बहुत ज्यादा सोर कर गए हैं। जो यूरोप की जो समस्या है, उस समस्या से अमेरिका को बहुत फायदा हो रहा है। आप ये भी कह सकते हो, यह जो अब इतने डिस्कशन के बाद आप में एक सवाल जरूर आएगा कि अमेरिका क्या वॉर लंबे दौर तक चलाना चाहता है? अमेरिका इज नॉट इन्वॉल्व इन द वॉर। अमेरिका इसमें हल्ला करता है कि हम मॉरल सपोर्ट करेंगे, ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, बाकी तो कुछ कर नहीं रहा है। इफ यू सी द वॉर इकोनॉमिक्स on the plight of the European powers, all are enjoying it. So why America want to finish the war? और इंडिया को ये वॉर सूट कर रहा है because India is earning foreign exchange also. So now earlier the India is importing the crude oil and giving the rupee, and against that rupee India is earning the foreign exchange. If you realize the economics perspective of India, India has one more advantage. He paying to the Russia and the rupees and the same oil he is supplying to the world, from where he is earning the foreign exchange. You can add this one point. Understood this energy geopolitics? आपको इसको पढ़ लो, हम लोग इसको और डिस्कस कर सकते हैं because it's a very interesting article. और इसको भी एक बार आप पढ़ लेना।
Sir, I'll do that.
आप पढ़ लो सर, क्या बहुत अच्छा है, तो इसने नए पर्सपेक्टिव को इसे ओपन किया है। इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन में अगर मेंस पे लिखना हो, बहुत अच्छे पॉइंट दे रहा है ये तो ठीक है, बट मेंस के लिए और अच्छे पॉइंट दे रहा है ये। Bhavana, read the article again.
Yes, sir.
You can try जो क्या कहते हैं, हम लोग उसको कल इसको और एक्सपेंड करते हैं ताकि अगर ये डिस्कशन इंटरव्यू में आ जाए तो आप बहुत अच्छे से इसको संभाल सको। आकाश,
यस सर,
आप भी पढ़ना बेटा।
यस सर।
आप लोगों को एक बात समझनी चाहिए, देखिए मैं आपको बता दूं जो मेरा अनुभव है छोटा सा, वो ये है इंटरव्यू को लेकर कि जो इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस है ना, foreign policy of the country, international relations, that is a kind of that enjoys the kind of a place that Sanskrit enjoys in the languages. कि आप संस्कृत बोल लेते हैं, kind of thing. You understand my point? So
yes,
if you are well versed in international relationships, then very less remains to be said about the intellectual depth that you have about general awareness and understanding. This is an area where a lot of maturity is required. That is why if you handle the questions of international relations very well in the interview, even a couple of questions, if you handle well and you have the ability to also answer the follow-up questions and show the various dimensions of your understanding, my goodness, then that sets the tone of the entire interview. Then they will be forgiven for any other factual error or mistake. That's my belief. If you have good understanding of IR and diplomacy, if you give diplomatically correct answers, which are not, not a kind of what you call the Ghisapita kind of trend, not you have some freshness you can add to your thoughts, and a good perspective we can give, economic perspective, political, diplomatic, geopolitical perspective to the answers, then I think that seals your marks to a very great extent. At least this much they will do. So this is a very good area. Learn as much as possible with regards to this global relationships right now.
I will add with the short one thing. Economics or international relation, वो आपकी पर्सनालिटी को जहां ले जाते हैं कि आप वापस नहीं आ पाओगे। इसलिए आप ध्यान करो, हम लोग जिस दिन से ट्रेनिंग स्टार्ट की है, इन दोनों को बहुत अटैक कर रहे हैं। You see, from our first day, we are attacking a lot on the economics and international relations. और आप ये तय मानो इन दोनों में सवाल मिलने की चांस बहुत ज्यादा है। और जो आपके पास स्ट्रेंथ है डिलिब्रेशन की, आप उसको पूरा इस्तेमाल करना और उस सवाल को जल्दी समाप्त मत करना। Try to deliberate and try to plant the question if possible. और हो सकता है आपका 25-30 में इंटरव्यू खत्म हो जाए, 200 नंबर देके। उनको कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं 40 में इंटरव्यू कर रहा है, कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं उनको, 15-20-25 मिनट फिनिश कर देते हैं। अगर लग गया कि लड़का लड़की जो है हमारे काम का है, खत्म कर देते हैं। सेकेंड, क्वेश्चन पूछवाना आपका आर्ट है। यू जनरेट द इंटरेस्ट इन यू। तो जिस तरह से हम लोग एनालाइज करते हैं इंटरेस्ट एंड रिलेशन को, मेच्योरिटी पे, इकोनॉमिक्स को, वो आना चाहिए। अभी प्लस टाइम उसको कोशिश करते हैं, इसीलिए हम आर्ट को फिर पढ़ाना चाहते हैं। रीड अगेन, इसको पढ़ने बाद हम लोग रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर, इंटरनेशनल, दूसरा क्या है, एक इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन में समझ जाते हैं, वो और भी हेल्प करता है, बिकॉज पॉलिसी इज मोर और लेस सेम। फैक्ट्स अलग हो सकते हैं, पॉलिसी मोर और लेस सेम होती है। नेक्स्ट क्या बताओ
Sir, that's all, sir.
तो 1 घंटे बाद हम लोगों ने कुछ कर लिया।
Yes, sir.
हम लोग का टारगेट है तो कल भावना 2 आर्टिकल हम लोग फिर से करते हैं, एक मनरेगा वाला, एक इंटरनेशनल वाला, ठीक है ना? क्योंकि मनरेगा में शोर ने काफी लंबा डिस्कशन किया है, लेकिन हमारे शोर के बोलने से फायदा थोड़ी होगा, बोला तो आपको है ना। तो कल ये 2 आर्टिकल हम फिर से रिपीट करेंगे, कहते हैं। और सोनिया गांधी का भी बहुत अच्छा आर्टिकल है, उस समय क्या कोई फोरम है, उस समय डिबेट नहीं पार्ट होता है, वो अच्छा। तो सोनिया गांधी का आर्टिकल मनरेगा इंटरनेशनल आप फिर पढ़ लीजिए, कल हम फिर बात करते हैं। और आकाश, यू ट्राई टू स्पीक ए बिट मोर बेटा। आकाश
Sir, I think Akash is not there.
और सवाल भावना, ये
Yes,
टाइम
sir.
पास क्वेश्चन, ये टाइम पास डिस्कशन।
Any
जय हिंद
question?
के बच्चों पढ़ाते हैं, जय हिंद के बच्चे बोलते हैं, जय हिंद के बच्चे बोलते हैं कि सर जब क्लास खत्म हो, हमें सर पेप टॉक किया करिए। सर जो सर क्लास में सर 5 जिसमें एक लड़की है वो की है, सर दिमाग गर्म होगा, सर दिमाग ठंडा करने वाली बात करिए आप। हालांकि बच्चे बहुत नए हैं, 2001 2002 बहुत बच्चे हैं वो। Any pep talk you want, any light conversation you want? Bhavana is क्या, very sincere, very focused on the subject.
Sir, one thing what I wanted to understand is if there's any question about which I have studied before, and if somebody asks me that question, that excitement will be visible on my face.
Visible on your face.
Yes.
That's okay. That's okay.
अच्छी बात है तो वही है। नहीं भावना, अगर आप में कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा ही आएगा, अगर सवाल आप जानते हो, कॉन्फिडेंस आ ही जाता है, आ ही जाता है। तो अपनी तरह कि आप मेरा चेहरा देखो, शौर का देखो, जो चीज हमारी ज्यादा कंट्रोल होती है ना, आपको दिख जाएगा। जो कम कंट्रोल में है, हम लोग क्या करें, दिमाग में अपने रिजर्वायर में सर्च करते हैं, आपको स्ट्रगल दिख जाएगा। मान लो अपना खुद कंट्रोल है तो तुरंत, अगर नहीं है तो अपने को कोई आइडिया तो ही है, अपने रिजर्वायर से सर्च करते हैं कि इसको हम कैसे आंसर दें, आपको चेहरे में दिख जाएगा। ध्यान देना, अगर बहुत मन देखोगे दिख जाएगा, तो आप में भी आएगा है, उसको फर्क पड़ता है।
Sir, also the voice modulation. If I'm confident in a particular question, then I would answer it clearly and loudly. If I don't know any question, my voice tends to be.
You work on your voice modulation more. You have all asset. Now we are interested कि 220 प्ले, 25 प्ले, 30 प्ले, 35 प्ले, जितना ही ऊपर आप जाना चाहते हो, उतना ही वो परफेक्शन चाहता है। I'm not saying your modulation is not good. I want it more. और आप जब क्वेश्चन शुरू करो, मैं बार बार रिपीट करूंगा, आप क्वेश्चन को सुनो, यू केयरफुली। तो आपका जो तैयारी का स्टैंडर्ड बहुत अच्छा है। इफ यू अगर आप दिल्ली होती इसमें आपको लोग फॉलो करते हैं, आप बहुत अच्छा स्टैंडर्ड है। तो आपका स्टैंडर्ड अच्छा होने का फायदा नुकसान क्या होता है, कई बार आप डोंट कैरी अवे। अगर बहुत आसान सवाल आता तो भी डोंट कैरी अवे। सवाल बहुत तैयार हुआ नहीं, आप अपना समय लो ना। आज भोपाल कर बहुत अच्छी बात हो रही कि आपका सवाल आ गया, उसमें टाइम जाने दो। तो हर आदमी के हर इंटरव्यू का कोटा है, तो आप कोई इंटरव्यू बोर्ड सवाल गिनता थोड़ी है कि 4 सवाल किए, 10 सवाल किए, 4 ही सवाल इंटरव्यू फिनिश कराओ ना अपना। तो 10 सवाल ले जाओ, वही 4 सवाल अच्छे से बोलो आप।
अच्छा भावना, sir has
Yes,
been
sir.
posting for our benefit some transcripts from interviews of some of the candidates. Have you prepared specifically that this question I will answer like this question I will answer like this? You
Yes,
are doing
sir.
this exercise?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes. Tell Akash also. This exercise is absolutely inevitable because maybe there is no duplicacy or no repetition of the same questions, but the themes will be the same. Believe me, themes remain altogether the same. That's why you should develop a thought process at least on the visible hints. These are visible hints. We cannot speculate about what is going to be ultimately asked, but at least we have visible lines along which interview is progressing. So this is something that you must do, and you should discuss with us. The point is this is a question, sir. Just for example, from one transcript, at least choose 3 questions. Okay, sir, these 3 questions appear to be difficult to me. Should I answer like this? So you help us help you.
Yes, sir.
और
Sir-
क्या है, टेक्नोलॉजी सो स्ट्रांग, आपको पूरा इंटरव्यू का बोर्ड का कुछ पता लग रहा है। एवरी डे यू आर गेटिंग जो भी वहाँ हैपनिंग हो रही है। दिल्ली जाने की कोई जरूरत नहीं, जो दिल्ली जा रहे हैं उससे बेहतर मटेरियल आपके पास मिल रहा है। और आप धीरे देखोगे कि इंटरव्यू बोर्ड टाइप है, या ध्यान देना। तो अगर आप सत्यवती का इंटरव्यू बोर्ड देखो, आप किसी बोर्ड टाइप का है वो, तो ये हर आदमी की स्ट्रेंथ है। आप हर क्वेश्चन को पढ़ो, ज्यादा क्वेश्चन होते नहीं, दिन में आपको मैं 4-5 इंटरव्यू बोर्ड के आपको क्वेश्चन देता हूँ, सिर्फ 4-5 बोर्ड के सवाल आपको देता हूँ, जितने मिलते थे मैं आपको भेज देता हूँ। लेकिन ये बड़ा एसेट है, ये आपके जो नेक्स्ट बैच होगा उसको हम लोग कंपाइल कर देंगे और अच्छा हो जाएगा, जो अगली बार हम करेंगे। इसी बार मैंने सारा इकट्ठा करना शुरू किया आपके लिए, बड़ा एसेट है ये कौन कर रहा है? दिल्ली के कुछ लोगों ने समूह बनाया हुआ है, वो यूपीएससी के बाहर बैठते हैं, उसमें कई लोग ऐसे हैं जिनका अटेम्प्ट खत्म हो गया है, यूपीएससी के बाहर बैठते हैं और लिखते हैं। कैसा लिखते हैं, ध्यान दो, एक सवाल लिखते हैं लोग, इवन ये भी लिखते हैं चेहरे पे एक्सप्रेशन क्या हुआ, ये भी लिखते हैं कौन सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया। आई एडमायर दोस बॉयज हु आर डूइंग दिस। ये यो चोटी सिंह, पता नहीं कौन है ये यो चोटी सिंह, वही काम करता है सब।
Okay,
तो
sir.
नाम रखा है
Sir, he's selected, I think, sir. He's now in IAS. He was selected previous to one of my batchmates is his very close friend, Yo Choti Singh.
उसी ने यो चोटी सिंह नाम देके स्टार्ट किया था।
Sir, his
उसमें
name
क्या
is
हो गया?
Harshvardhan, I think. I don't know his name, sir, but
अभी क्या इसमें बहुत लोग जुड़ चुके हैं, अब इसमें करीब 20-25-30 लोग काम करते हैं इस समय। तो इन्होंने क्या है ना कि जो कोचिंग इंडस्ट्री का भ्रमजाल था उसको तोड़ा भी लोगों को। एक कोचिंग वाले क्या इसी सवाल से आप देखो फोरम वालों ने छाप के कितना काम किया था, उन्होंने सब काम कर दिया है। ओके, और सवाल है?
sir, in fact, the Adani was also repeatedly asked in the transcript. That was the reason why I wanted some more clarity on.
आप अडानी के सारे सवाल देखो, बहुत सिंपल है, कुछ
Yes,
नहीं।
sir.
जितना हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया है उसके बाहर बताओ क्या है, बताना मेरे को। बहुत सिंपल सवाल है, और आपके इंटरव्यू पहले वो अडानी डिस्कस कर देंगे। अभी अडानी में हो तो चलने दो आप, आपका इंटरव्यू अभी मेरे ख्याल से 40-50 दिन है कम से कम। डेट आपकी आई नहीं है, डेट 25-30 दिन पहले आती है अमूमन। आपका इंटरव्यू अभी भी 40-50 डेज है। हम लोग जो हार्ड ट्रेनिंग करें 40-50 डेज हम लोग कहते हैं इसको स्टैंड बाय कर पाए, सस्टेन कर पाए, ही बड़ा काम है, वो टफ टास्क है। पढ़ो, शाम को इंटरव्यू पढ़ाओ, तो आपकी जो ट्रेनिंग है वो सब यूनिक ट्रेनिंग है, ट्रेनिंग बहुत कम हो रही होगी। आई डोंट थिंक एनीबॉडी इज ट्रेनिंग लाइक दिस।
Thank you so much, sir. And in fact, this is the time even I am privileged. Otherwise, every time it has been trial and error method only. All my attempts have been trial and error.
आपने अटेम्प्ट पहले बहुत ही बेकार ढंग से दिए थे, नहीं आप आईएएस में पहले चले गए होते, कैलिबर यू है पहले हो गए होते आप। जैसे आपने वो चेंज नहीं किया, कन्नड़ा लिटरेचर आपने सब्जेक्ट ले लिया, वो लैंग्वेज ली है जो आप लिख नहीं पा रहे हो, सुसाइडल अटेम्प्ट, आपसे पेपर ही नहीं पूरा हो रहा है, आपको लैंग्वेज नहीं आती है, आप लैंग्वेज लिख नहीं पा रहे हो, आपने ले लिया, आपने रियलाइज लेट किया ना ये तो।
Sir, more suicidal I did was first time I did not know that I had to study for ethics. So the first time I prepared for prelims and I cleared prelims. I thought I will not clear prelims only. So accidentally I cleared prelims. Then I did not know what to do for ethics. So I did not know that there was a textbook for ethics. Only after the exam
Get into the service that you want, and then I'll write about you. This is worth writing. Unbelievable.
भावना एक केस स्टडी है।
सही में सर। And she is exceptional. We are very happy glad to interact with you. You are exceptional.
Thank you so much, sir.
We really honor it.
और मैंने जिसको भावना के चेहरे की जो सौम्यता है, जो कहते हैं इमोशंस है, सब तारीफ किया। मैंने 2 लेडी ऑफिसर्स को इनकी कहते हैं तस्वीर भेजी, मतलब जो आप इंटरव्यू को था, स्मिता त्रिपाठी में यहाँ पे ग्रुप में शेयर कर देता हूँ। उसके बाद 2005 में बहुत अच्छी लड़की है, वो आ रही थी मॉक पे आने पे, नेक्स्ट टाइम आएगी, बहुत तारीफ की उसने। मैं इसमें शेयर कर देता हूँ, अपने चैट में शेयर कर देता हूँ, जो स्मिता ने क्या लिखा है भावना के बारे में। ईशु रस्तोगी है जो बीच फोन करती रहती है, बड़ा सा आई विल टेक टाइम टू राइट ऑन योर स्टाइल।
Sir, in fact, it motivates and inspires me also, sir. Otherwise, even for me also, it is difficult to sustain. So because I see you so dedicated and committed to teaching me, in fact, that motivates me also to learn and put in more work, sir.
नहीं भावना, I think you are also teacher of ours. आप भी हमको सिखा रहे हो. सौर ने उस दिन कहा ना कि हम शाम का वो टाइम वेट करते हैं. I totally agree with सौर. हम शाम का समय वेट करते हैं. It's the most productive time of the day. Most productive. कई आज के हम अगर नहीं भी पढ़ पाते हैं तो आपके साथ पढ़ते रहे. जैसे जियो पॉलिटिक्स में नहीं पढ़ पाया था, मिस कर गया, मैंने आपके साथ ही पढ़ा. सामने हम मुझे उसको देखा. ये चूंकि 3 बार पढ़ना बहुत ज्यादा मतलब आसान नहीं होता है ना, काम अपना और भी होता है ना. एनीवे विल सी टुमारो अगेन. सॉरी 5:30 का टाइम फिक्स कर देते हैं.
हाँ सर, इसको डिफॉल्ट रखते हैं.
बार-बार कम्युनिकेशन नहीं करना होगा. अगर चेंज करना होगा तभी कम्युनिकेट करेंगे, अदरवाइज 5:30 फिक्स.
अंडरस्टूड सर.
तो भावना 5:30 भावना from tomorrow there is no need to communicate for the time. If we are changing, then communicate, otherwise 5:30 is fixed. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.